Anyway, my name is Julie Hietschold, and you notice on the program, Eric Spangler from Moraine Valley was supposed to be here also, and he was not able to make it, so you're stuck with me, totally. So how many of you in here actually teach in the classroom? So almost everybody. I've been teaching Microsoft for about 15 years, along with some other courses, but mainly it's Microsoft. And how many of you have had students come up to you and say, is there someplace else I can do my labs? Yeah, sure. I would be surprised more than just the one. Yeah. Everybody's always saying, can I do this in the open labs for school? Well, no, normally not. Yeah, even if you've got an open lab that's available to your students, do they have the software? We also have Linux courses, and hopefully soon we're going to have Macintosh classes. I believe the hardware just got there. So normally you've got like a desktop operating system in your open lab environment. Is that the same that y'all find in your open labs?
No, I put the software in, so.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Now, we have one open lab on each campus, and it's very tightly controlled, and they don't like to be able to put any additional things on it. You know, and I can understand that. Coming from industry myself, I worked for Nortel Networks before they screwed up and went bankrupt. And you know, we controlled what was on the servers and what was on the desktops and so forth. So, I mean, this is just usually common sense with a school to be on the safe side. How about 2 o'clock in the morning? Anybody have a lab open at that time, even if you have the software available for your students? Not real likely. I know I wouldn't want to be there at 2 o'clock being a virtual assistant, virtual lab assistant. Have you ever had people that have moved, especially military? We've seen this more and more over the last few years, that we have people that are in the military that get called up for whatever reason. And we actually had one student that was in Afghanistan that was finishing one of his classes, only because he was able to do something with the teacher online. So we've got all sorts of challenges. This is a big one. How many of you have a budget at your school that could afford to set this type of a topology up for every student in a Cisco lab? How about the new storage class that EMC has? That doesn't look like a lot, but when you talk about buying a SAN, those things are expensive. Even having just the equipment to put something like OpenFile or FreeNAS on. Security Plus has 8 different machines in it. Each one of those pieces isn't that expensive, but once you do that for every student, it gets very costly to have the hardware available. VMware, we couldn't do the VMware class at Collin because we couldn't afford the equipment. It was just way too much to be able to squeeze out of our budget. Do y'all have similar stories that you want to share about budget? Is there anybody in here that's tried to do, say, the VMware course and supply your own hardware? Boy, this is a tough crowd. Not much talking going on here.
Yes, yes, I've tried the Cisco online with NetLab in the past. It was not an easy setup.
Not easy, no. If you follow very strictly the information that was provided by NDG and you've got the Cisco background, it can be done, but there is a lot of equipment that has to be tied together. And the further up into the courses that you get, the more complicated they get, definitely. So what type of a student have we actually not talked about yet?
Talk about
Well, that's
students who need a lot of hand-holding.
a lot of hand-holding in your classroom. How about online students? How are they going to do their labs? You know, in the past, in the classroom, you could come in and you had a tech that came in and set up each one of the machines, and normally you paired people together where you had a team, and one person would do part of the labs, the other person would do another part. You remember that with the old Microsoft classes? You know, you didn't have everything to do it all yourself, so you couldn't see exactly what all was going on. Oh, here's a Moraine Valley person, and I may ask you to jump in here.
I mean, I'm right here.
She works with Eric Spangler. So now we've got more and more classes that are being offered online. So we've got to have some way for the students to do their labs that are in these online environments. How many people in here do online training? I think Coastline, I saw you, y'all do online training, I know. Who else was in there? What all do y'all teach online?
You know, I teach web development, so this is kind of interesting for me. We've got, I don't know, our server is not, it's not the virtual environment we're talking about, but I thought
Yeah. Well, we're working with the computer side, the programming and so forth, and we'll be doing, hopefully, some web development. I mean, that was brought up to us. And we have to work on how to get outside of our kind of sandbox environment that we have. But this is a great opportunity. You remember I mentioned Macs earlier? If a student doesn't have a Macintosh at home and he wants to take an online class, what the heck is he going to do? So if we can include a Macintosh virtual setup, then all the people at home with no Macs can check their classes and do everything online. Right now, there's multiple ways that you can actually do online labs. There's the Microsoft, what's it called, MOAC Labs Online that's offered by Wiley, and we're actually using that right now. So there's several that you can actually use that can be put into your classroom, but that costs the students money. So if there's any way that you can save students money, then that's an additional benefit to them. And that's one of the things that we're trying to help our students with. Be able to give them the best bang for their buck, for a lack of a better term.
HCM.org, $19 a year. HCM.org.
HCM.
That's the Association of Computing Machines.
Oh, really? I'll have to check that out.
$19. Hundreds of books and lots of money.
Yeah, one of the problems with, if I'm thinking correctly about what you're talking about, is the labs are not set up exactly a certain way.
They're not as fancy as yours. Yes.
Yeah, we try to follow the same labs for every student, and it's pretty much goes along with the curriculum that we're teaching and the books that we're using. So normally you would get, like from Wiley, you get the MOAC material, the actual books, and then you get the MLOs that go along with that. So it ties the material together. Anybody else know of any other online that you're using? Okay. We at Collin are with the National Information Security and GeoSpatial Technologies Consortium. I had to write it out there so I could actually remember to say it. We have selected to use NetLabs. That's the Network Development Group, Rich Weeks, that some of you have already sat in on several presentations that he's been included in. So those are the ones of the virtual labs that we're going to be using. So with NetLab, you've got the NetLab appliance, which acts more as a scheduler. It's got the software that can actually go out and talk to each one of the machines. And we've got your virtual, your actual physical hardware that's being used. And you need just enough to be able to go with the virtual labs. Then we can have the local classrooms use it. We can have a computer lab that takes advantage of it. We can have students come in from their homes, coffee shop, wherever you want them to be. The one thing I love is having a remote instructor. You know, with me doing online material, I don't have a classroom to go sit in. So I would like to be able to know that a student's having problems, schedule a time for them to schedule their work, and let me go in and watch what they're doing. I can physically see the keystrokes that they're making on the machine. And I can say, oops, wait a minute. You did that wrong. You weren't following exactly the labs. And in the past, I have had to do this with students using a little free software application called TeamViewer that came in very handy. Be able to watch and see what they were doing when they get stuck on this. So the ability for a remote instructor to come in to be able to see what the student's doing and give them some guidance is a tremendous asset. So this is one of the things that we really love about MDG. Kind of a strange picture. I couldn't back up enough in the room to get the entire rack. So this is in two pieces. So we've got 2 UPSs, we've got 3 Dell servers. Here's our NetLab appliance. And then at the very top, we've got our EqualLogic. The SAN, which was not cheap. We have 9 terabytes of available disk space on it. And then we have an iSCSI switch and a regular Ethernet switch up at the very top part that you can't see. And then the very top is a sonic wall firewall appliance. So right now, with just this equipment, I think we decided we could service over a month's time well over 1,000 students. You know, as you've probably heard in several of the presentations, you can only have so many active sessions going at one time with so many virtual machines in them. So you kind of have to play with your equipment and see exactly what you need, your equipment and your classes. But it gives us a tremendous opportunity to meet a lot of needs for a lot of students. Yes?
And is there any way to have it closer to the cloud so you don't have to have your own equipment?
Not at this point. I believe that the only options are to rent available space like from EDG, or if you could pair up with the college. Like Dan, I think they're working on that.
NDG is actually just one of them. So
yeah, they're working on that. Oh, good. Thank you. I didn't know about that. Super. But if you could pair up with a college, like eventually we're going to do the same thing. If not, I'm not correct, Andy can interrupt me. But eventually down the road, we will probably want to have remote institutions that will be able to work with to be able to use our labs. So it doesn't look like very much, but what is it, $250,000 worth of equipment in?
It's not that much. That's all we got. I mean,
oh, only 120.
we got a second order going.
Yes. So
Well, not really.
We've got the hardware, and these are the pieces of software that we can provide now, the classrooms that can be set up. And each one of those pictures that you saw, you know, for instance, the SAN and the 2 machines for the ISM, excuse me, Information Storage and Management class, the ENC storage class. That's called a pod. So one grouping of the hardware is a pod. So we've got pods available for the ICM, which is the VMware vSphere class. We've got the ISM, which is the storage class. We have Cybersecurity, Security Plus, VMware, and Cisco. Lots of Cisco labs. That's where NDG basically started, was with Cisco. So any questions over what we've got available at this particular time? These are the ones that are coming. These are the exciting things. We've got forensics, Network Plus, mobile programming, A+, Cloud Essentials, Linux Plus. Linux Plus is almost completed now. I know it's in the hands of NDG, and I believe it's going to be available sometime in January. I'm hoping that it'll be available for a class that we're offering at Collin. And we've got GeoSpatial Technologies and more on the Academic Alliance. The cloud, I believe, is coming, cloud class. So lots of good things coming. Do any of y'all use NDG products right now? No? Good products. You can also develop custom labs. I'm working with one of the instructors at Collin right now to set up call managers. We actually have it set up in a virtual lab, and they're working on it this week, as a matter of fact. So if we can offer this to them, it's going to be a big benefit to a lot of people, students, instructors, and support. Microsoft is another one I can't wait to hit. This is something that Moraine Valley has set up. This is what they have, their open lab, only it's called the Virtual Open Labs. And we may be able to coax John into showing off some of this in a minute if we have time. But the students can log in, they can go in and use one of the virtual lab machines, have the software that they need available. For instance, if they don't have Office, they can come in and use whatever is set up on here. Office, it could be one of the Photoshop programs that needs to modify movies and things like this. So this is going to be a great tool. We haven't implemented this at Collin yet, but this is something that I know Moraine Valley does have. And when I speak of Moraine Valley, that's where Eric Spangler is from. And if you want to check out anything that they've got, it's at CompTIA.org, CSSIA. I remember when Ann told me to go register for the first class at CompTIA, I put CASSIA, and I couldn't find it. Well, it's CSSIA. But they offer a lot of great courses, especially that are available for instructors for free. Am I correct on that, John?
Yeah, most of our faculty development courses are free.
Yeah.
Online now.
And they've actually held competitions. I believe the instructor that was in here last was talking about competitions with Microsoft. And I mean, can you imagine setting up a Microsoft competition or a Linux competition? These were, of course, for Cisco. So the student being able to get in and figure out how to do these things and to spur along that competitive nature that we all have in us. It'd be a great opportunity. And then the students being able to get the recognition for possibly winning one of these or even participating in it. So I think this is a great opportunity for students. So we've talked about benefits for students. Access to their lab equipment anytime from anywhere. This is great. And they can have more courses because we now don't have to spend the money on the hardware. We've got it virtualized. This is a big one. I have students who are afraid to do their labs because they're afraid they're going to break something. Well, most of the classes can be reset, and they haven't lost anything in the participation in the competitions that we just talked about. Well, let's talk about a few other places or people that get benefits. How about the administration? You know, cost savings. They don't have to spend all the money on the equipment. The support staff doesn't have to support all of the the hardware that's necessary in a classroom to be able to run their labs. A lot of these labs need 3 and 4 gigs if you're running virtual machines. They've got images that they've got to keep up to date, and they have to set up every classroom before a physical classroom can be presented. They're there. All you do is you've got your master, you clone it, and you've got a class. It's as simple as that. You don't even have to have a classroom that has PCs in it. You can have one night be lecture, or you can have lecture, you know, both nights, whatever, if you've got 2 nights out of the week going. Have the students go home and do their labs at home, or wherever they want to do them. You don't have to physically do the labs in the classroom. So you can have a lot more places that your classes can be held on technology. Yes?
Do you find you have to use administrative settings if you have demand for a larger number of spaces than you can provide simultaneously at, say, peak times?
I'm not sure exactly how to answer that. Can you handle that one, John?
Yeah, basically, there's a front-end scheduling capability to this, so you can literally control who has access when. And there, there is some management that has to be done.
You found you needed to do that because there's more demand Friday nights than
we've experienced peak times rather than, because what ends up happening is you look at the system and you find out there's only 5% utilization, you have so many more seats available, so you start opening up the classes more time. At the beginning of the semester, we normally say we provide it during class time, and then they have certain times after class that they have access to it. Well, if we find that the utilization has been low, well, we start to widen that window. Well, what ends up happening near the end of the semester, students are trying to finish all their assignments and so on.
Right.
You might run into situations like that, but it basically just takes a little management of, when you're going to allow, access to it.
So that's sort of what I was asking, how you thought about managing that. And restricting the number of reservations per time or length of reservations.
We've basically done it by class. We tell instructors you have it during this period of time during your class, and you have it on these off hours. Okay. And that's basically how we do it. It's fairly straightforward.
Now, we're pretty new to this environment, so we're still trying to figure out exactly how we want to do it.
Yeah.
But basically, it's the student comes in and schedules the time they want to do the lab, and when they can have the time to schedule, they can do the lab. Somebody beats them to the time they want, they have to schedule for another time.
And you can even monitor that dynamically, because you can have emails sent to you as reservations are being made. So you find out all of a sudden you're getting a flood of these things, you might shoot an email out or use your Blackboard to tell them what times going to be available for a particular class.
Yeah, I'm curious how you work that, because I've used remote access equipment in my lab for about 5 or 6 years for my forensics classes, and they make reservations through Google Calendars, and everybody pretty much plays nice. We normally have restrictions of no more than 3 2-hour sessions each week on a particular machine.
We do. Yeah. You can limit how long the reservations can be. Anything you want to add, Rich?
I don't want to interrupt, but there's a couple of things you can do to manage your environment. We call them nerd knobs. The reason we call them nerd knobs is we get more requests for these types of things than you can imagine. First thing you can do is set what we call resource awareness. You can tell the NetLab software how much computing power you have, tell how many virtual CPUs you can manage, how much RAM you have, etc. And the scheduling engine will allow you to schedule up to the absolute maximum before you run out of resources. That allows you to time slice the server up to its maximum peak. So it's called resource awareness. The second nerd knob you can do as an instructor, you can set roles. If you find that your students are complaining because they're not getting enough lab time, you may want to look to see if 1 or 2 students are being lab hogs. You can set rules for how often that student or the class of students can go in and access your lab environment. And what you'll find is, if you do the math on it, you can serve a ton of students in a given semester.
That's how we do ours. And we end up opening the window rather than closing the window most of the time.
Thanks, Doc.
This is Rich Weeks with NDG, if you haven't met him yet. This is highly scalable in a very stable environment. That's one of the benefits, too. You may start with a small setup like we've got right now, where we've got all of this hardware, all this availability, but we're just in the infancy of it, and we're starting to offer the classes. We had one class in the fall that actually used the Security Plus labs. And I know for sure that we're going to have the storage class because I'm teaching it. So that'll be in the spring. So we're really starting to ramp up things and getting going on it. So those are the type of questions that you just asked that I'm going to be asking myself in the very near future. And how about for the instructors? You know, let's not forget about us, guys. We can better control the labs that we provide. We've got, as I said earlier, the ability to view the labs and help students when they're having problems. And we can actually have faculty development available to us whenever your lab manager wants to make it available, or through CSSIA. And the last one is one I really like. With Microsoft, unless you do some special setup in your classroom, there's no way to do like a case study or a hands-on final. You know, we do that in Cisco, but Microsoft's not set up for anything like that. So wouldn't it be great to have either a case study or a hands-on lab that you can have them perform that basically hits the skills that they needed to perform to be able to prove that they knew the material to pass the test? This is available.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd like to add to that is that I don't know how many of you have developed your own labs through your class, especially if you're teaching cybersecurity. It's really complicated, right? I mean, one lab, you may need one type of image, one operating system with certain vulnerabilities, and you use tools to exploit that vulnerability. The next lab might be something totally different, you know, a completely different image and so on. And it's time-consuming and difficult to manage that class, or just the environment itself. And then on top of that, you have that your administration doesn't want you using those tools on your production network or on your school network. So what this does is it moves it to a sandbox environment, so you don't have to worry about the security issues. But in addition, as students progress through the labs, the images they see, the tools that are on those desktops and so on can be different for each and every lab that they work on. And the beauty of it is that we've developed the labs and all the images that go along with it. And if you contact us, we can actually use them. As long as you have the Microsoft volume license, we can send you copies of this. So you can basically, it's a turnkey system. And you're ready to go with it. You basically install these virtuals, and you have these system, images up and running with the proper tools, tested with the proper vulnerabilities, and so on. So it alleviates just hours and hours of setup time and testing time and so on, let alone the time that you're going to use to evaluate, you know, your students' progress. And to me, the part I like the best is it's intuitive. Instead of, you know, a student logging into one system and being into another system, or open up a VPN, basically all they need is a web browser. The picture's in front of them. They click on a router, they're on that router. If they click on a particular server, they're on that server. They click on a workstation, they're on that workstation. So we're better able to comprehend the material because it's an environment that they can understand and comprehend immediately. They don't have to figure out 4 or 5 steps to leap one system to another system, not knowing what they're working in. It's a very intuitive visual environment that they're working in. And I think it's important for students, especially in entry-level classes, or if you're studying complex concepts, that they can focus on the concepts rather than the login procedures and the credentials that they need to get in.
Yeah, and the GUI on this is wonderful. I mean, it really is. It's very easy to work with. It's very understandable. Anybody see any problems so far? We got one.
How much it cost?
I've come up with one. Well, we'll answer that question in a few minutes. Remember I said that would be a question? the one thing that they don't have yet that they're working on is how to grade your labs. So in case anybody thinks about that, the way that we've gotten around it is we have them do screenshots periodically throughout the labs. And that shows that they're actually doing them. Now, granted, they could use somebody else's screenshot, but you know, that's the best way for us to know that they're actually working through the labs. You know, they could go in and start the lab and walk away, and the time would show up on there, but that doesn't really prove that they have completed the lab. There's also another option would be to ask questions about things that happen within the lab. and they would have to answer that and then turn that in as homework, for instance, or as part of their lab grade.
How the vendors handle that is they build for the rest of the labs. So the labs build them themselves. It gets to the final lab or the final development.
Oh, well, that's true.
That's how the vendors handle that.
Yeah, and that's very irritating because if something goes wrong and they have to rebuild everything from the beginning, that's tough. So a lot of the labs that we have developed so far have not built on themselves. Basically, it starts at the next lab, so that you don't have to go back to, the very first lab and do all of them. So there's drawbacks in every way that you do anything, but there's so many advantages to this way. So I've got just a very, very quick demonstration. If I can get back over to it, here it is. Oops. Okay, I've got too much open apparently. There we go. Sorry about that. So this is what our front end looks like. I believe some of you may have seen another schools that they showed in one of the previous presentations. This is at Collin, and I would log in here as a student. I can't see. Okay. And I actually had a lab reserved, and now I guess it timed out on me. So I would click the schedule button, and you can see right now I'm a student within 4 classes. I'm also an instructor in most of those classes too. So I pick out the one I want. So here's the storage, and these are all of the labs that are available. So we looked at the RAID in Bill Sachek's class a few minutes ago, and this is the actual lab that we did. So I would go and pick, oops. So start now, and let's just say that we do it for till 5 o'clock. This is Central Time. Yeah. Okay, so that means that it's now open to me. I click on the lab. Yeah. Yeah, I had reserved this earlier so that this would already be done. And this is one complaint that we did have from students, where they said it took forever for this to load. Well, we've got a lot of equipment that we're starting up here, and it's all virtual, so things will take a little bit of time if you want to jump right into it. So I mean, that wasn't too painful. I've had some laptops that took a lot longer than that to do that. So we've got our topology with our SAN, which is going to be through OpenFiler. We have a Windows 7 machine, and we have a Linux box. And I believe that's Ubuntu, if I remember correctly. Now notice that we can also show our lab content, and having 2 monitors or a larger monitor is definitely an advantage here. So I will open this up a little bit bigger so you can see more of it. Oops.
We're building a much larger library, currently of these labs. So, like I said, we're going to have labs in a variety of different classes. So, an investment in this could provide you labs in programming. It could be GIS type of things later on. Your networking classes, your Linux classes. So,
lots of them. So the lab setup itself starts out with what the objectives are. What are you trying to do in this particular lab? It shows you the topology. This is an area that you really need to pay attention to because you'll need this throughout the entire lab. It's got the usernames and passwords on both of the machines you're going to be working with. And then it jumps into the actual lab itself. So we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I think I will see it, instead of running through an actual lab. I mean, everybody in here's gone through a lab. I'm sure that wouldn't really be that entertaining. So, are there any questions, anything that anybody wants to know more about? I know you brought up a question about how much. So, Rich, do you want to address that?
I don't know whether they're asking questions. I'll get to something to show all that information.
Sure.
If they've got other questions.
Have you got any other questions? Yes.
This is the top level analysis.
I don't have that available.
It's not so much about cost-benefit analysis as it is about providing the ability to provide these sorts of labs in the means that we're providing it, where it can be done. You know, our students, typical community college students are already working, and typical community college students would really like to do labs that